17th March, Wednesday. Grace 29. Compassionate eyes, the best sight of God. Dear friends in Christ Jesus, Israel has been severely punished by the Lord for her sins and for her idolatry. Her cities have been ransacked, and her sons and daughters have been carried off into captivities. Dear friends in Christ Jesus, Israel has been severely punished by the Lord for her sins and for her idolatry. Her cities have been ransacked, and her sons and daughters have been carried off into captivity by her enemies. In today's first reading, God promises to turn the captivity of His people. Today's readings are full of hope. The Lord comforts His people and shows mercy to His afflicted provision. He leads them and guides them beside His springs of water care and sustenance. Can a mother cease to forget her child? Can she ignore him or her? The image of a sucking child presents us that a child is totally dependent upon his or her mother for everything. God says it is possible for a mother to forget her child. Yes, that is possible. But it is impossible for me. And we see this in the word not, which expresses an unconditional prohibition. And we see this in the word not, which expresses an unconditional prohibition. I want you to get a picture of what God is saying. When a mother has a child, the child is the most important thing to her. Every time the child cries, the mother is right there. Every time the child is hungry, the mother is right there. There is never a time when the child is out of the mother's sight. They have a tunnel vision when it comes to the child. And God says, just like that mother who has a tunnel vision, whose child is the important thing in her life, there is a possibility that she could forget about his or her. And God says, just like that mother who has a tunnel vision, whose child is the important thing in her life, there is a possibility that she could forget about her child. She could ignore her child. She could cease to take care of her child. Sometimes a mother can get so busy that she is not paying close attention to her child. The child gets out of her eyesight. Is not that true? Well, God says, not with me. Our Father says, we are never away from Him. He always sees us. He always knows where we are. Let that sink when you are going through the trial. Yes, dear friends in Christ Jesus. The comforting words of the prophet Isaiah comes at a wonderful time in our Lenten journey. We have been reflecting upon the patterns in our lives, and we have come to see that we need mercy and healing. By this time in our experience of Lent, we may have already sensed that it is really difficult to remake ourselves on our own. The habits we have, the ways we tend to react and respond to our family members, to people we work with, seem so deeply seated in us. If we are working on change and asking for the grace we need to change, we are realizing that we seem to resist the change fairly and strongly. The invitation today is to trust that the Lord will answer us and help us. So we need to ask Him today for the graces we desire. If our desire include the prayer to know God's love and mercy for us, if our desire include the prayer to know God's love and mercy for us, then God will show us the merciful love of Jesus. Compassionate eyes, the best sight of God, is the grace that we have for today. Eyes that are filled with compassion moves us to the plight of the people. If we have those eyes of compassion, we can truly believe that we are moved according to the sight of Jesus. Action of the day. Let's truly feel sorry for the moments we hurt our parents, whose eyes were filled with compassion. If God can work through me, He can work through anyone, says St. Francis of Assisi. Have a graceful day, dear friends.